Definitely saw people that just totally lost it mentally. They were friends at the time. I did not stay in touch with them. Saw people that definitely were suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, fighting the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. They were trying to kill us. So we were trying to find them to kill them, and they were trying to find us to kill us. I think I was able to avoid that, but I got to go be a door gunner, and I could just sort of be off at night, even though I was on call a lot of times 24 hours a day. I could still be goofing off in the base and just be able to respond to, being called up to go fly a mission. For me, how I got involved was just, I saw people doing it. I got interested, liked the idea of you have to focus on it completely, and so that it would sort of take you out of other things that you might want to be thinking about. For fun, I had a dirt bike, and I lived out in Free Union, and we would ride all the time, and we were always wrecking, and so my friends started calling me Willie Wipeout because we were wrecking so much. I got drafted into the Army, but I knew that I would go into the Army because I was in a flight school in Florida, and I didn't have a college degree. So I knew my options were flying helicopters, and the United States Army was taking students that were high school graduates if you could pass the testing. So I had that in my head, and so when I got drafted, I enlisted to fly helicopters. So I was in a cavalry unit in Vietnam, which had tanks and also infantry. And I was up north near the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, for my first 6 months. And then I was able to get transferred to be a door gunner on a helicopter for my last 6 months. So saw a fair amount of action, but saw a lot more action as a door gunner. Our assignment would be to go out and pick up those wounded soldiers even in combat, or also we were a scout unit. So we would go out and actually try to get the enemy to shoot at us. So I saw a lot of action as a door gunner and some action as an infantryman. I flew as a scout. We would fly really low over the trees, and we were trying to get them to shoot at us, and behind us would be, and up at a much higher altitude would be gunships, helicopter gunships. And so if we lured somebody out or found a unit that was hiding, then those gunships would then attack whatever the position was that we were being shot at from. Well, when I first flew back into Seattle, Washington, that's where we landed, we were spit on and yelled at and called murderers, and so it was pretty hard to come home and deal with that. Just wanting to get out of there. We were warned that this was probably going to happen. We did hear a lot about protests going on, so we expected something, but to actually get spit on was definitely set me back. It was a shock, and but when I still had a year left in the Army when I got back, or I had 10 months, and so there were a lot of riots going on in Washington and against the war. And so during the week, I was at Fort Meade, Maryland, and our main job was riot control for Washington, D.C. So when these protesters would come to Washington to protest during the week, I would be somewhere in Washington. A lot of times we were hidden away with live ammunition, and we were going to have to be forced to decide whether we were going to, and actually end up having to shoot protesters. On the weekends, this is how crazy it got. I would come here to Charlottesville. Friends of mine were at University of Virginia or had just graduated or just lived here. And so they would be protesting against the war on the weekends, and I would protest with them. So it was all over, I was all over the map, and I just sort of, my attitude was I'm along for the ride and trying to stay out of trouble and not getting in a position that I had to do anything that I would regret later on. I didn't start fishing for almost 5 or 6 years, so I can't say that it helped. I think what I like about it is that, as I said, that it's a sport that you have to totally get into and focused on, and if you can do that, then I find it really relaxing. A lot of my fly fishing is hiking into the backcountry. I'll go to West Virginia, example, and I'll hike for 2 hours, and maybe fish for an hour or two, and then have to hike out for 2 hours. Some people think that's crazy, but the hike in and the hike out are just as pretty as the fishing.